What's up, guys? This is Mateo's 2020 Politics here, and today we're going to be discussing a guy who is typically irrelevant, who ran for the presidency for about 4 minutes, Mark Sanford. He announced his run on July 16th, 2019. That's what I just looked up. I even forgot when he decided to run because it was so forgettable, and he just withdrew yesterday. Now, what do I think about this? Well, I think that if you were going to launch a bid against Trump in the Republican Party, you're a bit naive because this man has some polls. The polls show it. And speaking about polls, I was just debating one of my fellow commenters about if polls are really accurate anymore. And one thing I find funny is how when there's a poll showing somebody beating Trump, oh, you know what? Don't rely on polls. Remember 2016? They aren't trustworthy. But then when there's a poll showing Trump beating his opponent, oh yeah, look at that. He's beating him. There's no talk about it being inaccurate. So all the polls show that Trump's the favorite in the Republican primary. I mean, his approval rating is in the late 80s in the Republican Party, which is just massive. Sometimes it's even been like 92%. So you're kind of a joke if you run against him. The first guy who ran against him was Bill Weld. He's still in the race. He says, let's bring our party back to the days of Abraham Lincoln. What are you doing? And then it was Joe Walsh, who I kind of actually like because he's pretty critical of Trump. He decided to run. He seems like the most energetic guy. And then there is Mark Sanford, who just doesn't really stand out. He's just kind of boring. I remember CNN hosted this really long interview between Mark Sanford and Joe Walsh. And Joe Walsh was like, this man needs to be impeached. He just possibly spoke to Ukraine about, putting, some evidence against Joe Biden, digging up some secret information. And then Mark Sanford was like, hold on, wait. And he seemed really kind of lazy and tired and boring the interview. And it wasn't the fact that he was anti-impeachment, it's more that he was just really broad. He wasn't really decisive, while Joe Walsh came across as much more direct and open. So Mark Sanford didn't really stand out in many ways, and ultimately, unsurprisingly, he decided to drop out. I don't mean to really shame on him or anything, but again, if you're running against Donald Trump in the Republican primary, what are you doing? And it's interesting how that question didn't go through the head of Mark Sanford, because he clearly doesn't know what he's doing. But hey, at least he's able to drop out, unlike some people like Michael Bennet, who stands for nothing, who's a Democrat, but he stands for nothing and hasn't dropped out. I do know John Kasich's still considering a bid against Donald Trump, but I don't think he's going to end up running, especially since Trump is so popular in the Republican Party, to the point where the more Republicans run, the more they're going to split that 10% of Republicans that don't like Trump. So instead of never mind. No, whoa. Instead of being Trump gets 90% of the vote, Bill Weld gets 10%. It'll be like Bill Weld gets 5%, Mark Sanford gets 5%. Bill Weld gets 3%, Mark Sanford gets 3%, Joe Walsh gets 3%. They're going to split that little tiny fraction up. So, moral of the story, if Donald Trump is the current president of the United States and he's this popular in the Republican Party, just don't run. And if you are going to run on a special message. Thank you for watching this video. It's kind of short because there isn't much to talk about. See you guys later, and bye.